Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you all for tuning into the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley. Happy Friday to everybody out there. Hope you guys had a great week. My week has been relatively boring, just working with FC Dallas and trying to pretty much get as much sports as I can in the week. I am still reading Joe Madden's biography, Try Not to Suck, which is actually a lot more entertaining than I expected. I'm almost done with it. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. Joe Madden, pretty interesting guy. Like, obviously, everybody in baseball knows that because, I mean, the dude brought Bear Cubs to spring training to play with the team. Like, you kind of got to be weird to do that, but yeah, anybody who hasn't read that, I would definitely pick up that book and just it's a fun read. It's an entertaining read, and that's really all you can ask for if you are a reader. I've had books that were on a pretty interesting topic that were just mind-numbingly boring that I had to put down, but you know, Joe Madden has found a way to be pretty personable. You know, speaking on the Cubs, big news for the week. Theo Epstein, you know, he steps down as, you know, president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs. He did the same thing with the Boston Red Sox. So, you know, it was about a 10-year run with the Red Sox before he stepped down. And now he was at 9 years with the Chicago Cubs. Pretty much same results. Wins a title early, kind of got bored and said he needed a new challenge. You know, he turned the Cubs into a contending franchise every single year, despite, you know, having, you know, a few up and down seasons. You know, he had just blew a major lead in the NL. What was it? I think it was 2019. I think it was last year or 2 years ago with you know, the Brewers. The Brewers came out strong, and they were able to take the NL Central, you know, tied on the very last day, beat the Chicago Cubs in game 163, and then go to the wild card game where the Cubs also lost and got knocked out of the playoffs. So he's out. Rumors are that he is going to be sitting out for a year before he figures out where he wants to go next. He says he's not retiring from the game. He says he wants to take a year off before he realizes what his new challenge is going to be. You know, the Anaheim Angels, you know, they just got their new GM from the Braves, so they're going to be rocking with him for a few years. So I don't expect Theo Epstein to go to Anaheim. You know, the Mets are an interesting case. I think the Mets would be a good thing for him to chase. I would say a good, you know, another curse, I guess. Not wouldn't necessarily be a curse, but, you know, a good thing where he could, you know, step in, do his thing, and have pretty much a blank check where he could just plug pieces in, do this, that. So I would expect Theo Epstein to choose probably the New York Mets at the end of 2021, probably around the winter meetings of 2021. I would say that, depending on how good they do this year. I don't think that they'll make the playoffs this year. That's just me. I did my whole rant on the last episode about how I don't think super teams actually work, especially not in baseball. So I don't expect the Mets to actually make the playoffs next year. I know it's kind of a hot take, especially with all the people that they're going to try and get. But, I would expect Theo Epstein to go there. One thing that I kind of want to rant about, I was watching the NBA draft last night, and there were a lot of people hung up on, there's one blanket word in sports that really, really makes me angry. And I was reading this article about Marcell Ozuna, and how his quality contact is the reason why he is, climbing up the ranks as a marquee free agent. No kidding. You're telling me that a guy who has solidified himself as one of the best hitters in baseball, one of the 3 things that you really need to do in baseball, you need to pitch, you need to hit, and you need to field. There's all these quality statistics, there's all these, major, all these BABIPs, there's weighted runs, weighted runs created plus, there's all these different ones, advanced statistics that, everybody can just dive into and just be like, well, here's this number and he's not as good at it as this. Just watch the game. How many people really watch the game and sit there and can tell me, oh, Marcelo's, I could watch for 2 games. If you just watch this postseason at all whatsoever, you'd be like, oh, Marcell Ozuna, yeah, he's a free agent next year. I want him. He hits the ball hard. It's really not that difficult. And the one word I think that everybody's hung up on in sports that really, kind of is a get-out-of-jail-free card for dumb decisions is potential. Potential, I think, is the dumbest word in all of sports. It is this blanket term that general managers use so they don't get looked at as bad for messing up. And it's really it's getting to the point where it's really annoying me, cuz potentially I could just do nothing for the next full calendar year besides work out and train every single day, and maybe that'll give me a chance to potentially, get a tryout with a big league roster if I were ever to find one. There is potential for that to happen. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. It really doesn't. And there's one thing, I was watching the NBA draft last night, and there was one thing about Patrick Williams getting taken number 4 overall by the Chicago Bulls, and it was he has the potential to be a pretty good 3-and-D wing. And I'm sitting here okay, so at number 4, you're taking a 6th man, a non-starter on the 3rd best ACC team, instead of somebody who is a solidified 43% three-point shooter at any, just who's long and can run a team. And, granted, there's fit, there's all these other things, but it's potentially he could reach that. I highly doubt he's going to reach that. There were people who were very good prospects going into the 2nd round of the NBA draft last night that were getting picked behind a bunch of other people who I had no idea who they were, and the blanket term that everybody used was, oh, but he has potential. Yeah, he has potential to be a top, 25 player in the NBA in 5 years, but he also has the potential to play in Turkey next season. What is this? And it's happening in baseball. I'm reading this article about Marcell Ozuna that made me so mad. He said he had a 54.4% hard hit rate in 2020. Hard hit rate? 54% of the balls that he hit were hit hard. I can see that with my own 2 eyes. Now they calculate that as a ball that's hit over 95 miles per hour. When they want to rank that in the top of the league, the top tiers of the league. And it's yeah, he hits the ball hard. But really, all you have to do to be successful in baseball is to really just work hard and care. Like, just work hard and care. That's it. Like, I've known people who have got drafted into the MLB, and I've watched their draft, like, video that they put on MLB.com or Baseball Reference or, whatever the draft profile is. I'll go and I'll watch their videos, and it's like, if it's a pitcher, they don't even throw strikes. They're like, oh, he's tall and he throws hard, so he has potential. Yeah, but can he strike somebody out, or is he going to walk in 5 runs a game? If he walks in 5 runs a game, why are you drafting him? Oh, because maybe potentially we might be able to fix this at some point. No, that's dumb. Why is that even something that you're looking at? Let's go back to the NBA, for example. The number 1 pick in the draft, Anthony Edwards, literally said he does not really care. He's like, oh, I don't really care about basketball. And, and the whole thing, they're drafting him number 1 overall, the first pick in the draft. And they're like, yeah, if he cares about defense and if he wants to work on his shooting, he could be good. What are you doing? Just draft, I will never understand that. If there's one person in the NBA that I will guarantee is a bust this next season, is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, it's going to be Anthony Edwards. I'm sitting here thinking, this guy's not going to be good because he does not care. Just pick someone who cares. There's blanket terms of potential going around all the time. I see it right now. There are guys who just are nonchalant about everything. Yeah, they're smooth with it and everything like that, but potentially they could be really great. Potentially they could just never really care and just be average. There were times where I was watching Manny Machado play baseball, and it looked like he didn't care, and he just looked like an average dude. His whole time with the Dodgers, I was ready to see Manny Machado be this insanely good, talented player, and it looked like he didn't care. And then he's around all these people, and he goes to, San Diego, and this season, 2020, kind of changed a little bit, but in 2019, we were watching him play, and it's like, does he really care? No, it didn't look like he really cared. And then 2020 comes around, and they're mashing balls all over the place, and he kind of gets a little bit of a spark in him, and next thing you know, he's an MVP candidate out of nowhere. And it's like, yeah, no kidding. It's like, it's all about if you really care and if you work hard at it. It's not really that big of a deal. Just pick people who care. And with baseball, it's like, you can tell Marcell Ozuna cares. He went from the Marlins, who were okay. The Marlins, when he was on it, they weren't great. They had Yelich, and they had, everybody's aware of all the people that they had. But, there was just probably an atmosphere there that wasn't really, catering to what he needed. And he still played great. The Marlins showed that, the structure that they had around them wasn't good. And it was like, okay, potential. It's like, yeah, he showed how good he can be. If he was batting .202 with the Marlins, and they were like, oh, we're going to pay him $200 million because potentially he could be what he is right now, last season with the Braves, or the year before with the Cardinals, it's like, oh, we see it in him. It's like, yeah, if they saw that he had all this potential and they wanted to pay him all that money, they would have done it. But they were like, we can't get it out of him. We don't see it. We don't think that he really cares about playing with the Marlins. And, he goes out to the Cardinals, and, it's a culture change. And it's like, dude, you're going to have to care, because we're going to play you a lot. We're going to pay you a lot. We're going to play you a lot, and we're going to need you to produce. And he showed up, and it was winning franchise, and, it was just something that changed, and he was out there. You have to find a way to get people to care. It's all an internal thing. I honestly don't get it. This whole thing of potential just really is annoying. And I don't really understand why everybody is just so, he's so in on potential. It's like, oh, potentially. It's like, it's all within your organization. If your organization cannot develop stars, then it doesn't matter how good, how good he could potentially be. It's all about your organization and how you handle things. It's like the players are good, yes, but if you don't put, like, as a owner, as a general manager, if you do not put people around them that are going to help them get better and have them care and have them, really hit them in a spot where they're going to be able to, learn how to win and learn how to work hard and learn how to do all this stuff, they're not going to be great. They're just not. Like, you look at the Marlins now. The their Marlins roster right now is 100 times less talented than it was when they had Marcell Ozuna and Jose Reyes and Giancarlo Stanton and Christian Yelich and all these guys and Jose Fernandez. R.I.P. to Jose Fernandez. It wasn't his fault. But, it's like they're less talented. It doesn't mean they have more potential. It's just that they are doing the extra work. They care more. And there are people around them that are showing them how to do things the correct way. It's not that these players right now have more potential than Marcell Ozuna and Giancarlo Stanton and Christian Yelich. They don't. There's nobody on this Marlins roster that you look at and you go, oh, they can be better than these guys. No, there isn't. But they care and they work hard. So they went out and they win games. This whole thing of potential is just really annoying to me, and I really feel like being a general manager on the baseball side and the talent evaluation is really not that hard, because it's just basic things. Marcell Ozuna, can he hit? Yes. Can he hit for contact? Yes. Can he hit for power? Yes. Is he fast? Not really. How's his fielding? Okay. Awesome. Cool. Let's get him. Simple as that. Do we need somebody to bolster up the lineup? Give us some more power? Have somebody who's going to be energetic? Yes. Marcell Ozuna, is he energetic? Yes. Can he hit good? Yes. Awesome. Let's sign him. It's really that simple. All right. I digress. I'm going to be taking my first break, and I will be right back to talk about some more news along with the Mets and the formerly great Robinson Cano. I will be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alrighty, everybody, we are back. So let's talk about Robinson Cano. So with the Mets, Brodie Van Wagner, he was the GM for a little bit over a month before he acquired Robinson Cano, who was his former client. Brodie Van Wagner was his agent. In a trade that also got Edwin Diaz to New York for prospects. What was his name? Jared Kalinick and Justin Dunn, with a few others. So a little backstory. Cano really was bad through 2019, but he rebounded in 2020, this upcoming season, in 49 games. Or not upcoming season, but this latest season. Over 49 games. He hit 318, 352 on base, and a 544 slugging. He is 37 years old, and he credited his success to an off-season workout program that allowed him to keep his legs in peak shape. knowing what we know now, he was probably off at Balco, doing the Barry Bonds routine. I'm just playing. He got the cream and the clear, going, rubbing his legs down every single day, being able to work out, do some heavy squats, just keep him going. Now, I'm going to spin zone this a little bit in the sense of, Robinson Cano. So, Cano has a ton of money. He's 37 years old. He was so bad in 2019 he was so bad with the Mariners in 2018 that they even tried to move him to first base. So ever since he left New York the first time, he's been pretty average. I don't really have his numbers pulled up, but he's been his numbers dipped from a borderline 40 homer hitter to, I think one year he ended with 14 homers in Seattle. I don't remember the exact number, but his power numbers dipped exponentially. He just never has been the player once he left the Yanks. And signing that massive contract with the Seattle Mariners and then just really petering out the way that he did was just awful. And then, he's got all this expectations on him. He's guaranteed the money. Baseball contracts are guaranteed money no matter what. So I don't really understand why he would do it, to be completely honest. I don't think he would get big money anywhere else for another contract. I mean, if you have that type of money already, you should have invested it at some point to, keep something going. I mean, let's see, he's going to forfeit. So he's suspended for the whole year for steroids. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm sure you already know. He's the whole season. It's a second strike. It's full 162. He's going to forfeit the entirety of his $24 million salary in 2021, but he's still due $48 million the next 2 years. The Mets are responsible for approximately $40 million, with $8 million still being paid by the Seattle Mariners. So the Mariners got to pay him $8 million for the next 2 years. It saved not only the Mariners, but also the Mets around, to a total of $24 million this year. So, I mean, the dude's still got $50 million left. And if you just want to have fun playing baseball, I'm not against it. I'm really not. I'm really not against steroids in baseball. The one thing that I am against is human growth hormone, because human growth hormone grows every cell in your body, good or bad. So the whole thing about HGH is HGH will grow everything, even if it is a cell that is, not good, like a cancer cell, for example. So if you were taking human growth hormone and you have a minor, little cancerous mole or something, it will grow and it will yield very bad results in the end. But steroids is more of a recovery and energy type of thing. So because I read the book of Balco, which is the book that was about the steroid era with Barry Bonds and the Olympians and Gary Sheffield and Jason Giambi, all those type of guys. So there was a lot of things where it was there were some, it was the cream and the clear, and it was a schedule for all that kind of stuff, and you're supposed to take cycles and all that kind of stuff. Everybody who goes to the gym knows how steroids work and who the roided out people are. So I'm not I mean, it is what it is. It's Robinson Cano. He's at the end of his years. He's just trying to have a few more good years before he ultimately retires anyways, because he knows he's on his last leg. I mean, he's 37 years old. By the time he's going to be back, he's, 30. He's going to be 39 because he's 37 right now. 37 right now. Next year, he's suspended the whole year. It's 38. And then he's got under contract until he's 41. He's just trying to ride out the rest of his deal and kind of, play good baseball before he just rides pine and just teaches other people how to play the game, because you know it's coming, especially with Steve Cohen coming and, is going to be flexing his wallet and signing anybody who walks past him. So, I mean, it is what it is. Robinson Cano, career .303 hitter. He's got 2,600 hits, 400 more away from 3,000. So I could also see why he was doing that. He's got 334 homers, about 4 more years. Let's see. Let me do some quick math here. What is 64 homers divided by 4. Or let's go 64 divided by 3. It should be 2023. So 21 homers. So maybe he was trying to reach the 3,000 hit, 400 homer mark, and he just needed, 21.3 homers per year to get in to, because he could see, like, those are borderline Hall of Fame numbers. If you're 300 hitter, career 300 hitter, 3,000 hits and 400 homers, you're probably getting into the Hall of Fame. But with the PED use, he already has 1 positive test under his belt. He's already kind of done. So it's like, let me get the numbers just for me. Just so I can be, selfishly, I can look on my mantle and be like, this is what I did in the major leagues. Granted, you're not going to get the utmost respect from everybody in the game, but at the end of the day, like, who really cares? Like, we're all going to die at some point, and if we all die at some point, like, isn't it all that, like, we did what we wanted to do and we're happy with it? As long as we can, go to bed at night not feeling guilty, like, who really cares? Like, he played in the MLB. If he can look at a baseball with his career stats being 300, 3,000, and 400, like, that seems pretty cool, and that's probably what he was going for. But what this means is it has a pretty big impact on free agency this year, because free agency, the Mets are already suspected of getting everyone. They're in the mix for every single player out on the market. They're going to throw money at everybody and just hope that they can get someone to come in. The Mets, they're looking at second base. They could use Andres Jimenez full-time at second base and keep using the same outfield alignment of, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, and Michael Conforto. They could move Jeff McNeil into second base and go after Marcell Ozuna in the corner outfield. Could go after George Springer because George Springer is looking to come in. They could go after Jackie Bradley Jr., who's one of the best, center field options in the game. There's a lot of different options. They could keep the outfield the same way, maybe go after George Springer anyways, maybe bring in DJ LeMahieu, put DJ LeMahieu at second base, bring in George Springer, put him in one of the corner outfields, and then move Brandon Nimmo to the infield. Like, I don't know what they plan on doing. If the universal DH stays around, is Pete Alonso really going to play first base for forever? Like, maybe they can move Pete Alonso to the DH spot. I'm sure he'd make a ton of money just doing whatever he does, just mashing dingers and, just bringing life to Citi Field, which we have not really seen since the World Series in 2015. There's a lot of things that, that this really affects. And once again, like, I think this has a huge impact, like how Brody Van Wagner or Wagner, how he handles this, has a huge impact on if Theo Epstein comes in. Because if they flop, like with Steve Cohen coming in and almost guaranteeing within 5 years that they're going to have a World Series ring, that's a big target. But one thing that he can, he has in his back pocket is Theo Epstein. Theo Epstein, he left, I don't remember when he left the Red Sox. I think it was 2014. I think he left in 2014 or 2013. If he left in 2013, then that means he won 3 championships with the Red Sox. So he won 3 titles with the Red Sox, and then goes in 2014 to the Chicago Cubs, and within 2 years wins a title. Within 2 years wins a championship with the Chicago Cubs. So that's a big thing. So if they flop this year, Van Wagenen's out, and I could see Theo Epstein going to the New York Mets, and that's one thing that will definitely draw in free agents. Because if you look at the history of Theo Epstein and just the way that he's handled baseball in every single aspect of the game, he's built title teams. I mean, the 2004 Red Sox were a team that, he didn't really build, but he got some key pieces in the end, and he got, he put in, took out Grady Little, put in Tito Francona, and, ran that train. They won again in 2007, which they had a little bit of tweaking to. It wasn't really, it was pretty much the same core at the end of the day. But then, in the 2010s, I think they won the 2013. I think they won the 2013 title. They did win the 2013 title. So yeah, when they beat the Cardinals in 2013, that was a completely new team. An absolute completely new roster. It had been 6 years removed from the 2007 team. He didn't have Pedro. He didn't have Kurt Schilling. He didn't have Keith Folk. He didn't have Manny Ramirez. Orlando Cabrera was on that 2004 team. Mike Lowell, I don't think was there anymore. It was more, I think it was Kevin Youkilis at the time. So, it was he built a completely new roster. And then he goes to Chicago, builds a completely new roster on top of that, and within 2 years, they're a championship team. Like, knowing he has that in his back pocket, and, you're sitting in a room with Steve Cohen writing with a check in front of him, like, all right, how much you want? And Theo Epstein going, hey, man, I've built multiple title teams, and we want you on this team because we know we can win a championship. Who says no? I don't say no. Do you think anybody is going to say no to that? You're living in New York. Granted, New York is kind of crazy right now, but you're going to be you're going to be in pinstripes. Granted, it's not the navy blue pinstripes; it's a royal blue pinstripes. But you're going to be playing in New York City. You're going to be competing for a championship. And at the end of the day, like, you're going to get compensated correctly and probably paid more than market value because they're trying to win so bad. I think that this is, like, Robinson Cano doing steroids is big for him, just on his own, like, little legacy purpose. But once again, if he can sleep at night, who cares? It's like, who cares? Really? It's like, it's one of the rules of 10 to me. Like, is this going to matter in 10 minutes? Is this going to matter, in 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years? Like, no. Robinson Cano doing steroids is right now in 2020 is really not going to matter in probably 10 months. So, I don't know. Maybe I just think differently. I don't really know. But, yeah, so the Mets, they are, I don't think free agency has started. I don't think that you can talk to free agents yet. I haven't heard any rumblings about any crazy signings after the qualifying offers. I don't know when the free agency period begins, if it hasn't already began. So, I don't know. I'm just waiting until, these free agents, all the chess pieces start to move. And, once again, I will keep you updated when I hear something. All right, everybody, I'm going to be taking my second break really quick. And I just wanted to talk about the recent news from Kyler Murray. And I just wanted to talk about NFL players playing professional baseball. Because people are making noise about Kyler Murray and, just how good he would be playing Major League Baseball. And I just wanted to see how professional football players fared in Major League Baseball. So I will be coming with that information right after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alrighty, everybody, so we are back again. So, let's talk about Kyler Murray. So, Kyler Murray, he had, if you guys watch the NFL on Sunday, I really don't. I don't think the NFL is really that fun to watch, but Kyler Murray is actually one of the more fun players in the league that I will watch. He was asked if, he still wanted to play baseball. And, he said, yeah, never say never. So, there's news going around that, pretty much saying that, Kyler Murray, what if Kyler Murray started to play baseball again? What if Kyler Murray was playing baseball again? And it got me thinking. I was like, man, has anyone really been that good? That good at baseball while playing football? It's rare. It really is rare that a primarily NFL player would go play baseball and actually be good at it. It got me thinking because Kyler Murray, while he was in college at Oklahoma, he played in the 2017 Cape. So if anybody knows the Cape is the pretty much number one summer league for college baseball players. If you go and you play in the Cape and you do well, you're going to be drafted very high. And to nobody's surprise, Kyler Murray went into the Cape and he played incredibly well. He slashed .296. He had a .398 on base percentage and slugged .556 with 10 homers, 47 RBIs, 10 steals in 51 games. 10 homers, 47 RBIs, 10 steals in 51 games. So, naturally, the A's drafted him with the 8th overall pick in the draft. He went on, everybody knows the story, he went on to play quarterback at Oklahoma, won the Heisman Trophy, all that kind of stuff, and decided, baseball's cool, but I'm going to play football. And, it looks like it's paid off for him. Right now, he looks like he's at the top of the list to become, the National League or the NFL MVP this year. Despite, with everything that's going on with Russell Wilson and everything, all the hype that's going on around him. But I was just in there, I was thinking, I was like, did he really make the wrong decision? And I was reading this article and it was like, can you imagine Kyler Murray and Marcus Semien at the top of a lineup? Kyler Murray and Ramon Laureano patrolling the Coliseum outfield. Man, what a dream that would be. And, the A's, the reason they wrote that is because the A's still hold his rights. So if he decides to play baseball, he will probably most likely join the A's after, I'm pretty sure he would spend at least a couple weeks in the minor leagues before, coming up to the bigs to start playing. So I looked at a few baseball players, or I would say football players, that decided to play Major League Baseball. And one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted it to be, players that played a decent amount of NFL games and a decent amount of MLB games. Some simultaneous, some not. And the reason why I wanted to say simultaneous is because there were some players such as Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders who played baseball and football at the same time. Bo Jackson was actually primarily a baseball player, and then in October, after the baseball season was over, he would go play football, and vice versa, all that kind of stuff. So he was primarily a baseball player. Deion Sanders, primarily a football player. I got a few other names. Brian Jordan, who played football for 3 seasons in Atlanta, and then as soon as he retired, he went and started playing baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals. You have I got Jim Thorpe, a very famous, two-way player back in the day. Everybody knows if you watch college football, you have the Jim Thorpe Award, which is for the best defensive back in the nation. We have a few other guys who played a decent amount of games for both, and I got some stats for you. So I just wanted to think, because it's has anybody really been that good? Bo Jackson in 700 games, he had a career 8.3 WAR in 700 games. He had 598 total hits. He had 141 homers, a 250 batting average, 341 runs. He had 415 RBIs. He had 82 steals, an on-base percentage of .309, a slugging percentage of .474, an OPS of .784, and an OPS plus career of .112. Now, OPS plus, he's 12 points above average, and we all know he came back and played a few years with the Chicago White Sox after he had his dislocated hip injury, the same type of injury that Tua Tagovailoa had. But back in the 80s, they didn't really know how to fix that, how to do anything about it. He was pretty much the first athlete to ever have that type of injury, he was the prototype for how to get, Tua Tagovailoa to, come back and be just as strong and healthy as he is. So I can only imagine, if he would have been around 20 years later and had the same injury, he probably would have still been playing both and probably would have had a lot better WAR. So he is the number one, he is the prototype. He is the best player who has ever played in the NFL and the MLB at the same time. He's the only one to ever make an all-star team on both leagues. Truly, I think that Bo Jackson should be in the Hall of Fame. I do. I know he's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He has to be in a Pro Hall of Fame. Come on. His impact in baseball, albeit short-lived, but I mean, he has some pretty big moments. One of the things that I was saying about Derek Jeter was that, he has so many moments in the historical context of baseball, with him diving into the stands, Mr. November, the flip, all that kind of stuff. Bo Jackson, he has, the All-Star game just clubbing the homer off his, off the shoelaces of a Steve Carlton sinker. Steve Carlton is one of the best pitchers ever, and Bo Jackson, in his first All-Star game leading off, took him to center field like it was nothing. He ran up the wall. He has his moments. He has his moments in the league. I think he is the best to ever do it. He's going to be the best to ever do it. We can't really say anything besides that. So the next one that pops into the mind is NFL players who play baseball. Obviously, it's Deion Sanders. He played 641 games. He had a 5.5 WAR. He had a 558 hits, 39 homers. He had a batting average of .263. He had 308 runs, 168 RBIs, 186 steals, an on-base percentage of .319. He had a .392 slugging, an OPS of .711, and an OPS plus of 89. So OPS plus-wise, he was 11 ticks below average. So he wasn't really that great of a player. He just drew in so many fans to the point where, you kind of had to play him. It's primetime Deion, and it's the 80s. Deion Sanders, or he wasn't the 80s, he was in the 90s. So, Deion Sanders in the 90s. Come on. What are we doing here? He was the number one player on the Atlanta Falcons. He was the number one player on the Atlanta Braves. Kinda, not really, but I mean, popularity wise, if you were the number one Falcons player, you're going to be the number one Brave. Like, it is what it is. But Deion Sanders, way better NFL player than he was MLB player, and it shows. It really. I don't need to bring up the statistics or anything like that. When you see Deion highlights, there's one, ironically, where inside the park homer on the Yankees, where he hits it right past a diving Bo Jackson, for an inside the park homer. That's his shtick in Major League Baseball, and in the NFL, he has the primetime dance. He has, he's an NFL player, and he was not a good MLB player. Brian Jordan is intriguing to me because Brian Jordan played 3 years with the Atlanta Falcons and kind of stayed a free agent for a long time, because I remembered Brian Jordan being a free agent in Madden games growing up, because I would see him in the MLB game. Like, I would see him in, I think I had MLB, just MLB 04, MLB 03, like the MVP baseball kind of a thing. And I remember him being a free agent in that, and then I remembered him being a free agent in Madden. I was like, doesn't this guy play baseball? And doesn't this guy play football? Like, whenever I was watching it, but I never actually made the connection. So he was technically a free agent, in football for forever, but he only played from 91 to 93, and then in 94, he took over and started playing with the St. Louis Cardinals. I think it was 94. But he played the most games of any baseball player. He played 1,456 games. He had a 32.9 WAR. He had 1,454 hits, 184 homers, a 282 batting average, 755 runs, 821 RBIs, 119 steals. He had an on-base percentage of .333, a slugging percentage of .455. He had an OPS of 788 and an OPS plus of 105. He was also a one-time All-Star. So he didn't play simultaneously. He had his little run with the Atlanta Falcons, and then he didn't play football ever again. So he was more of a baseball player than a football player, and it shows. It shows in his numbers. So if you're primarily a baseball player who happens to play football, so far you have better numbers than a primarily football player who happens to play baseball. It is what it is. And none of these guys were quarterbacks. So I don't think Kyler Murray would actually benefit the Oakland A's in any way, because Bo Jackson was a running back. Basically, it's like, okay, I run through this hole, and if it's not there, I can improvise. It's not like, he doesn't have to understand and command a defense. He doesn't have to understand a defense and command an offense. He doesn't have to understand motions and all this kind of stuff. Brian Jordan was a safety. Deion Sanders was a cornerback. You don't really have plays when you're a cornerback or a safety. It's like, am I in a zone or am I following this guy around? It's pretty much like you're strictly just vying off your athleticism at that point. We got some older guys from back in the day, because a lot of people, we think of sports as, being easier back in the day. It was just like, back in the day, they had incredible numbers with all these crazy wars and stuff like that. And, we hear the stories of Jim Thorpe. So I got a few people from like the 20s and all this kind of stuff. They have incredible names, by the way. We'll start with Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe played 751 baseball games. He had a negative 0.1 WAR, 700 ABs, 176 hits, 7 homers, a 252 batting average, 91 runs, 82 RBIs, 29 steals, an on-base percentage of .286, slugging percentage of .362, an OPS of 648, and an OPS plus of 99. So Jim Thorpe, the guy who was the ultimate athlete, below average baseball player. He also very weird football numbers. So if you go back when in the early days of football, it is the most strange statistics you'll ever see in your life. Jim Thorpe had 6 touchdowns, 4 field goals, and 3 extra points. And I'm pretty sure he played defense. I could not find a single thing about him playing defense. There are very little stats. It is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. And there are some crazy people, like, if you just go back, like, there's one guy, Red Badgrow, also, that name rips. We need to have more people named Red just walking around. In the MLB, he played 143 games. He had a negative 1.1 WAR. He had 98 hits, 2 homers, a 257 batting average, 57 runs, 45 RBIs, 4 steals, a 307 on base, a 366 slugging, 674 OPS, and an OPS plus of 69. And then he also, in football, as a defensive end and wide receiver, had 16. His career high was 16 catches for 200 yards. Granted, I will give him credit because at that point the forward pass was just a trick play and everybody was just running the ball all the time. But 16 catches for 200 yards, and he played 94 games in the NFL. So he was basically split between both and a negative 1.1 WAR. Garland Buckeye, name rips. He was probably the best of the older guys in the league. He played 108 games as a pitcher and 40 games as an NFL guard. So he was on the offensive line in the NFL and was a pitcher in the 1920s. He had a WAR of 8.3, 30 wins, 39 losses, had a 3.91 ERA. He played in 108 games. He started 67. He had 1 save, 564 innings pitched, 134 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.48. Not great, but still, kind of got the job done, I guess, in a way. And I looked at his NFL stats. He doesn't really have any because he was a guard. He just blocked. But still, pitching 108 games and then going out and just crushing skulls on the offensive line, filling up, just wild. And a name like Garland Buckeye, that guy, I need a jersey. I absolutely need a jersey. But, once again, not very good. Not great MLB player. Really not that great. Then let's go back, the last one. We got Ace Parker. He played 94 games in the MLB. He had a negative 1.9 WAR, 37 hits, 2 homers, a 179 batting average, 20 runs, 25 RBIs, 1 steal, 231 on base percentage, a 242 slugging percentage, a 472 OPS, and an OPS plus of 20. This guy blew my mind because he was a tight end, a wide receiver, and a quarterback. Made no sense. He had no receiving stats. He had 1 year with 100 rushing attempts for 400 yards, but passing-wise, he had 4 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Very bad. His career completion percentage was 46.7. His yards for his career was 4,698. He averaged 6.5 yards per attempt. He threw 30 touchdowns and had 50 interceptions. Top that Jameis Winston. So basically what I'm trying to say at the end of the day, people are just thinking oh, imagine it would be a dream if you had Kyler Murray in the outfield with Ramon Laureano and, chilling at the top of the lineup with Marcus Simeon. And guess what, guys? If Kyler Murray ended up playing baseball and football at the same time, he probably would suck. It is what it is. All right, so I'm going to be taking my final break, and we will be back with our free agent focus. And our free agent focus of today is Philly shortstop Didi Gregorius.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Alrighty, let's close this episode out the only way that we can. So it's with our free agent focus, as you guys are well aware of. Now, like I said in the last segment, our free agent focus is Didi Gregorius. So Didi Gregorius, I was looking up, little tidbits of information about, where he's going to go, what are the rumors, this and that. It took me to this Philadelphia Phillies website, obviously, because they're the only ones reporting on it right now, because everybody's still trying to figure out, what about Trevor Bauer, what about Francisco Lindor, all these type of guys. And it said, one of the guys who's an insider with the Philadelphia Phillies is reporting that, that he predicts he's going to opt out not opt out, but he is going to leave the great city of Philadelphia and sign a 3-year, $39 million deal to go to the Cincinnati Reds. So, to go to the Cincinnati Reds, I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, the Cincinnati Reds, their shortstop game doesn't look that great. Who else had a big kind of impact on, or who's going to actually go after him, hoping that he will make an impact. I've heard a lot about the Angels, I've heard a lot about the Mets, and I've heard a lot about the Yankees. So, I looked at Didi's stats from last season, 60 games, and I compared it to what, what the Angels, Reds, Yankees, and Mets got production-wise from their shortstops. Because, obviously, Didi's going to be vying for the shortstop position. So, let's start off with the Angels. So, for the Angels, in the 60 games that they got from their shortstop position, let's see. So, they got a bit more production. So, let's see. They got about 30... Their sample size is about 30 more at-bats. They had 4 more homers. They had 7 more RBIs than Didi. Let's see. I messed this all up. So they got about 4 more runs. They got about 7 more hits. They got 5 more doubles, 2 less triples. They got 7 less homers. So Didi had 10 homers on the year this year, and the Angels, from their shortstop position, got a total of 3 homers. They got 19 RBIs from their shortstop. Didi had 40. Let's see, they got even amount of steals. Didi got caught stealing twice. Nobody got caught stealing as an Angels shortstop. Let's see, they got 15 walks by Didi, 19 walks by the Angels shortstop. Let's see, he K'd less. His batting average was 2 points higher. His on-base percentage was 3 points higher. His slugging percentage, slugging percentage was 100 points higher, and his OPS was 109 points higher. So, the Angels definitely could use him. Obviously, we're comparing him to Andrelton Simmons. Andrelton Simmons pretty much just a defensive shortstop. So what you're not getting in offensive output, you're getting tenfold in defensive output. So, it's not really like that big of a deal, to be fair. So if they lose Andrelton Simmons, I do still expect the Angels to go in and throw a ton of money at him. Let's see. So now we'll go to Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, Didi had 34 runs scored. Cincinnati had 17 runs scored by the shortstop. Let's see. He had 14 more hits. He had 3 more doubles. He had 2 more triples. Let's see. Homer-wise, Didi, once again, as we know, had 10. The Reds had 6 from their shortstop. 18 RBIs to Didi's 40. He had more steals. Same amount of caught stealing. Let's see. Walks. Didi had more walks. Less strikeouts. Batting average 44 points higher. Let's see. His on-base percentage was 39 points higher. His slugging percentage was 121 points higher. And his OPS was almost 200 points higher. So I could see why the Reds wanted him so bad, because the Reds' shortstop position was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Okay, so let's go. Let's see what the Yankees got. So the Yankees, he left last season, obviously. So let's see how they fared. Didi had more runs. He had more hits. He had more doubles, more triples. Let's see. Didi had more homers, more RBIs, same amount of steals. He got caught stealing more, which is fine, whatever. Let's see. Caught stealing. He had less walks, less strikeouts. Let's see what the batting averages look like here. 284, 224. So he had 60 more points in batting average. So his batting average was way higher than anything that they got from the Yankee shortstops this year. His on-base percentage was higher. His slugging percentage was over 130 points higher, and his OPS was 135 points higher. So Didi, better than anything that the Yankees got last year. So there has been rumors of a Didi reunion with the Yankees. And then with the Mets, obviously the Mets might go after him because of everything that's happened with Robinson Cano. So let's check it out. Same amount of runs. Didi had more Didi had more hits, more doubles, less triples. Actually, the Mets shortstops had 3 total triples. Didi had 2. Didi had more homers, 16 more RBIs. He got 1 less stolen base, same amount of caught stealings. He had more walks. He had less strikeouts. On base, or his batting average was 24 points higher. Sorry, 24. Bad at math. He was 28 points higher in the on-base percentage. His slugging percentage was 100 points higher than the Mets shortstops, and his slugging percentage was 129 points higher. So these are the teams that I feel are going to be vying for Didi's service, especially since he's not the number one name on the free agent market. I think that Andrelton Simmons, just based off his defensive capabilities, is going to go out and get some more money. Didi's also had, everyone's well aware of his, injury history. He hasn't finished a full season without getting hurt in his career. This was the first time, actually, he played all 60 games. So that's something going for him. I do believe that he would sign with the Reds. I do think that, with the Reds, especially after just the abysmal offensive performance that they had in the postseason this year, that they're going to do whatever it takes to get really whatever they can out of the free agent market, especially, with the Mets and the Angels and, all the teams that, the normal suspects that go out and, spend all their money for players. They're going to try and pick up some scraps, pretty much the guys who are, just kind of waiting for their call that aren't really getting it. And the Reds are going to be like, hey, we want you. How do we get you in Cincinnati? I think Didi's going to be one of those guys that heads that way. If the Angels aren't able to bring back, if they're not able to bring back Andrelton Simmons, I do think that they could possibly outbid the Reds for Didi's services, especially since, their thought process is absolutely insane. I think that they need, obviously they need to go after pitching. I've been saying this for every episode for the past 4 weeks, that the Angels need to stop doing whatever they're doing and strictly just get pitching, because their offense was top 5 in the bigs last year, or top 10. They were top 5 or top 10 in runs scored. They were one of the better teams at scoring runs. They just couldn't stop other teams from scoring runs. And, like I was saying before in the early part, in the first segment, where it didn't make any sense what people are thinking because they're stuck on potential. This pitcher potentially could be good. It's well, you need somebody who could stop somebody from scoring runs, because that's kind of the basis of baseball. Score more runs than the other team and you'll win. And your offense is scoring a lot of runs, but your defense your pitching is giving up more runs than you are capable of scoring. So you have to fix that. And the Angels' thought process is, let's buy people to score more runs, because that makes sense. So I could totally see the Angels going after Didi Gregorius and stashing him and paying him way too much money, and then trying to figure out afterwards what they can do with them, when really what they need to do is go after and get some pitching. The Mets, I see him going there the least, but I can also see a world where they strike out on a lot of the people that they're going for this offseason, and are pretty much forced to get Didi Gregorius to fill the kind of holes before Theo Epstein comes in. If Didi is the big signing of free agency for the Mets, I will bet my life that Theo Epstein is going to be the general manager of or the president of baseball operations, whatever title he wants, of the Mets in 2021. And then the Yankees, I don't even remember who played short. I think it was Gleiber. I think Gleiber played short for the Yankees last year. He was pretty injury prone last season. I could see him moving to third base. I would like to see that, because Miguel Andujar isn't really that great at playing third. Gio Urshela, he's kind of hit or miss at the plate. Really good on defense, but pretty hit or miss at the plate. And if they're able to bring back DJ LeMahieu, I think that if they don't bring back DJ LeMahieu, which they really need to do, and I'm talking the Yankees, obviously. If the Yanks can't bring back DJ, I think Didi's going to be, who they try and replace him with. It's not going to fill the shoes of a guy who's competing for the MVP 2 out of 2 years with your team. But I mean, at that point, you just kind of got to do what you gotta do. All right, everybody, that is going to be our show. I will be back on Tuesday with a brand new episode. Enjoy your week, enjoy your families, and be sure to enjoy whatever sport you want to watch. I mean, since baseball's not on. You can follow me on Instagram at EvanWorley23. You can play me in Tap Baseball if you are bored. The nickname is EvanWorley23, and I would like to thank you all for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you all to please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review, because it really helps us out. And also, if you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.